we first heard about the events of 9/11. For me, it was a Tuesday that started out like any other. I was scheduled to interview 2 members of Congress on Capitol later that morning. But no sooner did I turn on the car radio than I realized that interview would never take place.
That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers.
The reporter's adrenaline in me started rushing. My cell phone rang at the very moment I started to dial. As we spoke, my researcher, Deirdre Walsh, blurted, "The second tower's been hit."
Well, we got an explosion inside.
Racing now through crosstown traffic to reach CNN's bureau just a few blocks from the Capitol, I looked at one report after another, trying to absorb the magnitude of what happened in New York.
CNN has learned that at least one of the planes involved in this hit on the World Trade Center was an American Airlines 767, a Boeing aircraft.
By 9:30, my heart pounding, I ran the hall of the bus, glancing at the faces of colleagues, all determined as I was to focus on the job at hand and not give in to the temptation to ask, what the hell is going on?
Get the speed on push pull path 1. They got more tape coming, more tape coming.
At 9:40 came the report from CNN.
There was a huge plume of smoke which continues to rise from the west side of the Pentagon.
It was at that moment I began to wonder just what else they had in store for us.
There's nothing imminent, but this is just not the place to be.
My thoughts were forced by reports that the White House and the Pentagon were evacuated and a fire on Washington's historic mall. The last turned out to be wrong, but like so much else we heard that day, we couldn't be sure.
The city is crippled with no phones.
In our Washington newsroom, the daily routine had long since been shattered. Everyone's most basic news instincts kicked in as they tried to figure out just what was going on and to sort fact from speculation.
This is from WJAC in Johnstown. They're saying it's 767 United.
As one reporter after another called in with word of missing passenger planes, of all aviation being shut down, of jet fighters patrolling above the Capitol, I felt personally vulnerable for the first time. What if terrorists struck the Capitol building itself, just 6 blocks or so from where we were? What would we do? In the control room, the first pictures of the Pentagon were coming in, and technicians scrambled to get correspondent Jamie McIntyre on the air.
Jamie McIntyre, are you available?
I am, I'm here.
Through it all, reporters kept reporting, audio technicians kept checking audio, and producers kept monitoring the information coming in. There was no time to react other than a few expletives as we watched live pictures from Manhattan of the first tower collapsing behind my colleague, Aaron Brown.
There has just been a huge explosion. We can see a billowing smoke rising.
I think it was then that I sucked in a big gulp of air. Sitting on the Washington set a short time later, I recall saying shortly after the second tower disappeared in a cloud, "May God rest their souls." In all of my 30 years of reporting, nothing had ever come close to this sense of uncertainty about the fate of our country and about our capital city. But here we are 1 year later. That's a live picture of the White House this morning as this city is under a heightened state of alert because of new information about security threats around the world and perhaps in the United States. President Bush preparing to make his appearances at the Pentagon, flying then to Pennsylvania and on to New York City, the Vice President at an undisclosed location. We've come a long way in this year, but in many ways we are still gripped with the kind of anxiety that began to fall over us 1 year ago. Paula, Aaron.
I guess, Judy, I'm reminded by what Jeff Greenfield said about this time last year. It's the day our luck ran out. And this is the new reality that we have to confront.
Judy, if you're still with us, I think you probably are. As you sat down to write the piece, this reflections piece, could you again, because I went through this the other day, could you again feel the same thing sort of rising up in you, the same shortness of breath, the same anxiety, the same, I got to get to work? All of those feelings are so close to the surface still.
Well, it was a blur, Aaron. As I mentioned, I first heard it on the radio, And we're all, as journalists, we're trained to be ready whenever something happens. But none of us had ever, I guess short of covering Vietnam, which I didn't do, or, we can't even think of anything to compare this with. World War II, we certainly weren't around for that. There was really nothing to prepare us for this. I happened to be there the day of the assassination attempt on President Reagan, and as horrific an event as that was, this was something that touched us as a nation. And as I said, I remember racing through crosstown traffic, getting up to the 11th floor, finding everybody running around. We're all forever changed by it.
I remember saying, Judy, thank you. I remember saying not long ago that the hardest sentence I've ever uttered in my life said that day that the United States of America is under attack. There is nothing in any of our lives as reporters and as citizens that prepares us to say those words. It is a very hard sentence to speak still.
I know you've often talked about how surrealistic it was for you to stand here and report what was going on behind you 50 blocks away when you see those shots this morning.